Right, we are recording.
That's good to say.
Right, the July 28th, 2025 special board meeting of the Board of Commissioners for the SWPRD Parks and Recreation District is called to order at 5:02 p.m. We do have a quorum present. And is there anyone for public comment?
And we have one person online, Tom. And Tom, if you'd like to make a public comment, now would be the opportunity. But
I'm just listening. Thank you.
okay, thank you, Tom.
Uh-huh.
And we will move on to the 2025 Pro-Con committees for the 2025 M&O levy.
Okay. Just a reminder, we talked about this a little bit at the board meeting a couple weeks ago. We are required to recruit members for both a pro and a con committee for the upcoming operations levy in November. At July 16th meeting, you approved Marnie Zimmerman to be a member of the pro committee. This is our last chance to add anyone to either committee. So I guess the question would be, is there anyone else that's had a connection or anyone else showing interest in being part of this committee that we've heard of? Otherwise, that's all right. We'll submit Marnie's name as is. We did, as I said the other week, put this on social media. We put it on our website. We reached out to a couple groups to have them advertise it out. So I think we've done our due diligence. We've met the requirements. So, okay, that's fine.
If there's no further discussion, then I would entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to appoint Marnie Zimmerman to the Pro Committee for the upcoming November election for the operational levy of the district. Second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded to appoint Marnie Zimmerman to the Pro Committee for the upcoming November election for the operational levy of the district. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, aye. Krista, aye.
Jake, aye.
Matt, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the motion passes. We will move on to the discussion for the SWPRD Aquatic Recreation Center.
Which is, I think, why we've got a good crowd tonight. All right. Well, first of all, some of you have seen this PowerPoint. I'm going to kind of walk through the PowerPoint slides and some of the decisions that had to be made tonight. We'll hold off on any votes or any decisions till the end, so you can kind of hear everything all the way through. First, just kind of an overview of the bids that were received for the Aquatic Center. The bid tabulations are on our website, as well as they were in your board packet, to see that we received 9 bids, which everyone was surprised at the number. That was a great number, a lot of interest, a lot of competition, which was good. The lowest qualified bid was Lincoln Construction Incorporated. This doesn't change depending on what alternate items you decide. So the bottom line here is Lincoln was the lowest qualified bid. As a public agency, we have to go with the lowest qualified bid. We don't have flexibility to choose who we think might be better. Although Lincoln, the vetting was significant, both by Bloom Projects, we got Pacifica Law Firm involved to make sure that we were checking. ARC, our architect, made phone calls. Everything came back extremely positive. It's a company that's been in business for 70 years. Most recently, they did the Hazen High School pool project. They're out of Puyallup, but if you see their projects, they're up and down the I-5 corridor, so they're not limited to that area. As a matter of fact, in our kind of pre-meeting with him, he specifically said he's already identified the crew leads to be out of Mukilteo and Linwood, so they're North End people, which they have a ferry to deal with, but not the 405 corridor, which is good. So anyways, so Lincoln is the company that is to be considered tonight. From a financial breakdown, the lowest Lincoln's bid can be with tax is, as you can see, a little over 25 million. This would include rejecting all the additives, accepting all the deductions, making this as low a price as we can physically get it. This is about 4.7 million more than what we had budgeted, but is consistent with the professional cost estimator that we hired in spring to give us what the estimate should be. And you'll remember that when we got the estimate done, the decision was we need to make sure those are real numbers. So now we've had 9 professional companies give us real numbers as to what it'll really cost. So what we know now is the simple answer is it's just simply going to take more money to complete the project, right? It's 2025, everything's more expensive. So here's a list of the decisions that you'll be making tonight. It's extensive, but we'll walk through each one of these. We'll walk through one at a time. So I'm going to overview them now, and then we'll kind of slow down. The first and obviously big decision is whether or not to sign the contract with Lincoln or to rebid the project. If you decide to sign the contract tonight or to authorize me to sign it, then we have to talk about the 7 different alternate items that were included in the packet, and if you want to include any of them. And as I mentioned before, at some point, we're going to need some more funds. And so there's a couple options. There's what's called an LTGO, or there's just doing a completely separate bond like we did last time, just another one. We'll talk about that. And then these kind of trickle down. If you do an LTGO, the timing of when to do an LTGO is a consideration. If we do a bond, when do we do the operation levy? Because we still have to do an operation levy, even if you do the bond. And then finally, the cherry on top of our conversation tonight will be at what level should the levy be set? So part of the reason for this special meeting is that we have a deadline with the county in about a week to get all the information for the November ballot. And so we've got to set the levy rate so that we know what we're asking the public. We'll talk through all of that in great detail. So question number one, and obviously the biggest question of the night, arguably, is whether or not to authorize me to sign the contract with Lincoln, or rather we should send this thing back out to rebid. And let's talk through what that looks like. If we choose to sign the contract tonight, the question is, well, where do we find the $4.7 million, right? We're short. So we have 3 paths to that. Path A is we put money in the upcoming November levy to pay for what's called an LTGO. It's basically a limited, I'm forgetting the acronym now. It's basically a bond that you guys can authorize as long as we can afford to make the payment. So if we put the payments into the levy, then we can borrow the 4.7 or 3.7, as you'll see. The advantage of Path A here, Path A is an example. If the levy passes in November, we will start getting operational money for the pool 1 year earlier than it will open. In other words, we'll start getting the funding in 2026. The pool won't open until 2027, which will allow us to take about $1 million of that operational levy approved in November and put it back towards the project, which is why your LTGO goes from 4.7 to 3.7. So we could take that $1 million and just put it right back in. So your hit there would be a payment of about $350,000 a year for 16 years is the numbers we were given, which is roughly a 4 to 5 cent add to the levy. So the operation levy would go up by 4 cents is what we're projecting right now. And that would give us the payment for the LTGO for the next 16 years. Let's say we play this out and November comes and the levy fails. So we have to, again, my job is to play devil's advocate in worst case scenario. Well, then we would look at the numbers and we'd roll out a levy again in February, April, or August. And let's say it passes then. Well, what you've lost then is your levy is no longer coming a year early. Right now, we're not getting the money until spring of 27. So that $1 million taken from getting the levy early isn't there. So now your LTGO goes up to 4.7, and now you're up to 6 or 7 cents on an operation levy to pay for that. And then path C, is what I call the nuclear option. And this is the scenario where the public continues to fail the levy. They don't want to give us any more money. They want us to build it, but they don't want us to operate it. Extremely unlikely. This is not it's a possible, but not necessarily realistic path. But my job is to make sure it's vetted. So if that were to happen, we went through the budget with Bloom Projects line by line and identified about $900,000 that can be taken out of the pool budget because we wouldn't be operating it if we don't have that levy. And that again would lower the LTGO to 3.8 million and lower the payments down to 350. Path C, I think, is a very long shot. Again, this is the public multiple times coming back to us saying they don't want to give us any more money to operate the pool that they pass. So I think, but my job is to make sure you know that's at least the scenario and that we've got a plan for it. Part of our due diligence before we even brought this to you was to look at our current budget with no extra funds added to say, could we squeeze, cut, allocate money to an LTGO if the public never gave us another penny? And while it would hurt, we found the money in our budget to trim back to, it would mean less projects, it would mean less things in the public, but we wouldn't be in risk of defaulting the loan, which is ultimately, that's our safeguard, is we have to make sure that we can pay our bills even if the levy doesn't pass, even though we anticipate it. Because it's a good cause and I think there's a lot of excitement. So you choose to sign the contract. Here are some realistic ways to pay. If you choose to rebid the project, you have basically two choices. One is you add a lot of money to the levy, or you do a totally separate bond. Now you'll notice this number here gets kind of big. Now we're talking 9 million. What happened to 4.7? Now this was DA Davidson, Pacifica Law, Bloom Projects. This was multiple conversations with a lot of professionals saying, what's a realistic expectation if we have to rebid this project? How much more is it going to cost us? And there's escalation. There's the fact that the contractors know each other's numbers now. There's the fact that Lincoln was $1 million less than everybody else. So Lincoln left meat on the bone potentially that they would want back. So the consensus was around $2.5 to $4 million more it would cost us if we have to rebid. So we can't go back to the public twice. So 9 million was what the safe number was to put into either a levy or a bond to make sure that the district's interests are covered and that the pool can actually be built with no more financial challenges. So rebidding the project comes at a cost, but the public would get a chance to say yes or no on it. So those are two paths. And again, we'll get to an actual vote, but here are things you want to consider. Signing the contract considerations is, well, first we have to make sure we have money to finish the contract, which is something Carrie and I have been working diligently on, and I feel very comfortable saying we've got a clean path forward on that. Signing the contract now does ensure that the pool is built at the lowest possible cost. None of the professionals we're dealing with even consider the thought this would be cheaper if we rebid. It's going to be more expensive. We will have to lose some or all of the alternates and deductive items because we won't have as much money for some of the goodies, for lack of a better way to put it. And you'll be making the decision to add about $4.7 million into the cost of the project. Certainly within your right as elected officials, but a heavy responsibility. Rebid considerations, it will cost more. Like I said, 2.5 to 4 million is what we're getting in estimates on that. The public would get to decide, to allocate the money. We would have to give back the Department of Commerce solar array grant because that does expire at the end of the year. So we have a plan in place now to get that executed. If we sign today, to get that executed by the end of the year, but we'd give it back if we didn't. Could burn bridges with some contractors. We've heard that a few times. It's a lot of work to put a bid in, and for us to make them do all that work and then say, just kidding, that's a possibility. We may not get as many bids, I guess, would be the consideration. And then the public could say no if you rebid, which would cause a lot of issues. If the public continue to say no on a rebid, there's IRS issues if we don't build this facility. So we've now, the commitment of us and the public to take the $27 million in bonds a year and a half ago was the IRS now expects us to build a building. And so our attorney gave us very clear challenges with that would happen if we couldn't do that. So I think all that to say, that's just something to consider. So any questions on this first part, which is we'll get to the vote and the discussion point for you guys later, but any questions on the rebid versus sign the contract portion?
I've got a question just back to the just basic numbers. So I'll hold that until if you want to get through questions on this, but like I need to go back to the starting point and figure out where the 4.7 million and the 9 million, all that, where that comes from.
Okay. Yeah, and we certainly can walk through that. You want to walk through that now? Because we can talk through that. We have a Bloom projects, part of having the project managers. We've got a complete budget. Budget is on your SharePoint site. You guys can see the budget. The current version of it, I actually put the current version on it today. That has the entire operation of everything. The building costs, the soft costs, the permits, the furniture, everything that we're possibly going to need to put into this building. In that budget was allocated around 19 million plus tax to go towards the building of the project. So what they bid on here was the building of the project. So the 4.7 million is the delta between what we have budgeted for the build and what the bids actually came in. The 9 million is the difference that we are hearing that if we have to rebid it, what it's going to cost us to rebid. So it's putting in extra money, for lack of a way to put it, for us to be able to be sure that the pool can be built completely. So Jennifer has a comment.
My timeline is correct.
Mhm.
It took us 2 years to get to the 27 million that we put out to the voters.
Okay.
We choose to go back for a rebid. There is a delta in the dollars, but there is a delta in time.
Yeah.
That's time for, again, for costs to escalate. We all know that things do not.
So I'm not sure if Matt, if that's what you're asking, the 4.7 versus the 9, but that's the difference. It's one or the
Well,
other. It's either.
Can you pull up the sheet that shows the bid, like the table that has the bid costs from the board packet?
Um, Are you talking about the tabulation sheets? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah. There's one tabulation sheet that had all 9 bids on it with the base bid and the
I think you should get that as well.
the additive
Yep.
and deductive elements, and then the like page 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like the
Yeah.
fourth page in the packet.
This one. It's on our website. This
Yeah,
one
that-
here.
Yeah, this one. Yeah. So just like I say, I'm not getting it. So you're saying you're saying it's the delta between 19 or the delta between 20 and Lincoln's number? It's got to be the difference between 20 million and the 24.8.
Right, 24.8 is pre-tax. So yeah, you have some tax issues there that factor in. So we went through the budget and basically squeezed as much as we could, cut some things that we were able to cut out of it. And the difference between, let's not use tax now, let's just say before tax. The difference between what we have budgeted for the building of the center is approximately for about $20 million now based on this number. So it's taking the budget that was done by Bloom Projects for this project and then taking what we budgeted for the build and taking Lincoln's bid, and that's the delta. The delta is 4.7 million.
Okay, because and I'm just going back to some of the other bids that we had, or the other projects we had looked at. I seem to remember the soft cost adder at the end of on top of the project bid was something like, I think it was almost exactly and uniformly 23%. So when I do the math on 23% of, let's see. Yeah, okay. So your soft cost matches, soft cost by themselves matches with what you just described. So if it was a $20 million bid, there's 4.6 million in soft costs on top of that. So that puts us at 24.6 from a soft cost plus construction cost standpoint if it was a $20 million bid. But we still have, so you're saying beyond that, there's 2.3 or 2.4 million in other things.
Yeah, I think I would need to sit down and look at these numbers because you're throwing numbers at me and I'm not sure that I'm following necessarily.
Well, I was just working backwards from
Yeah,
27 million. So you're saying 27 million is what we have. You had the budgeted number for the actual bid from these guys they had to come in at 20 million because we have 7 million in other stuff on top of what they bid.
They would have come in at 20 million, we would have signed a contract with no extra money.
Right. So the soft costs, like I said, historically are almost uniformly 23%. So that's 4.6 out of that. So there's 2.3 or 2.4 million in other things besides the building.
Yeah, that's
cost
contingent.
and the soft costs.
Yeah, that's about the number of the contingency, which is like 2.4. that right? Yeah, 2.4 is the contingency number here,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
is a high
So-
contingency. We have 10% contingency, which is protecting the district's interest.
Yeah, so there's 7 million on top of all these things, all these bids. 7 million just flat number on top of all the bid numbers. So their 24.8 becomes 31.8 as a base.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we're 4.8 million in the hole from that.
4.7, but yeah, that's
Okay.
that's about
And,
it.
and then okay, so I'm good with that. So then where does the 9 million come from?
9 million is, again, all the research has told us the same, is if we have to put this thing back out to rebid, there's going to be a significant change of pricing. So we have been told by multiple sources about $2.5 to $4 million of what's needed if you rebid the project. In other words, the prices are going to go up. You're not going to get a lower bid if you rebid. So the 9 million is if we do a bond, we would put the high number there because we can't do this again. We get one shot at this. So we would do 4 million added to the 4.7, rounded to 9. Remembering that if we did a bond, you don't have to sell off the bonds. So if the numbers were coming in favorable and we only needed 8 million, then we could save $1 million of bonds and let it sit. So the 9 million is the plan if the board decides to rebid tonight.
Got it. So it's just being conservative, assuming that, like these guys are saying, costs always go up. I mean, I would say just as a opinion, we're in the most uncertain environment concerning imported goods with the tariff situation changing sands of tariffs that if there are, and I haven't seen the bid detail, but I would assume things like some of the core stuff like aluminum may be coming from Canada. I would say my guess is it could go either way because there's a big chunk of this that I am assuming is tied up in higher costs due to tariffs that may or may not continue and may change in directions no one can anticipate.
And that's why we put a cushion in there. The 4.7, we know the 9 million is us being conservative and making sure that even if the numbers come in higher, we've got enough.
Right, right. So if you said we're gonna go out for another 9 million in bonds, it may very well shrink and we may not need to spend them, but it's a conservative way to make sure we're not coming back to the voters again.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Any other questions versus signed contract versus rebid? We good? Okay, that's the most complicated one.
Can you explain what's the timing on the rebid and what's driving timing on the rebid?
The timing of the rebid is the question. Will be based on us getting the funds. So we would take it to vote in November, and we would be ready the day after we got approval to put it right back out. So if the public said in November, great, your thumbs up, we're going to give you the money, then November 5th or whatever, whenever it's verified, we'd be ready to go back out. So you're looking at probably a 6-month delay, best case. If the levy or the bond were to fail, that would be a much more significant delay.
Got it. So it's timed off of actually putting a nominative bond measure to the voters in November, going through that. If we're successful, then we rebid. That's the timing.
That is the timing.
Okay.
Else good? Okay, so let's talk if we accept the bids, what else? So this is going to be a decision if you decide to sign the contract tonight. If you decide to rebid, this is a moot point. But these are the alternates that were put on there. I'll just briefly go through them. And then if you decide to sign the contract tonight, we'll go through them in more detail. There's 3 deductives, which means we'd be taking these out. But the current price that you looked at is the lowest price. So you have to kind of flip your mind and realize that if you said yes to any of these, we would be adding this to the price. So the party rooms came in, this is with tax included, at about $250,000. The office space, which was reducing the office space by 75%, came in a little under $200,000. Those were the lowest numbers, I think, of any of the bidders. They did not put a high number on this. Lincoln didn't, which was good. The solar panels, the building comes with solar panels. This quote here is for the extended version. We mentioned the Department of Commerce Solar Array Grant. This is the portion that would be completed if we got, if we needed to pay that off. So this may be something you don't want to do tonight, but we wanted to have those numbers kind of in hand so that a year from now, 2 years from now, if we can find the money, we kind of have a ballpark of what it's going to take us to finish the solar array project. Eric, you have a question?
Above and beyond the funding that we're already using,
Right.
right?
Yeah. The grant is for design. So right now we have solar on the building now. So there's going to be a company that's designing that and putting that in. If we sign a contract now, we're going to spend that money from the Department of Commerce to have them extend their design to do the entire building, to do the full project. But then we have to be able to fund it. So this number would be funding the rest of the building. So, yeah, so it gives us that option down the line, or you can do it tonight, but ultimately we kind of wanted to know those numbers as to what it was, what's it going to take? Because we may have to go out and find more money to get the rest of that solar array, probably will. So anyways, the Murtha versus concrete deductive was significant, by far the largest of any of the contractors, at 1.1 million. The AV system is wired. That is part of the base bid. That's the wires and conduits, all that will be in place. The AV system is just finishing it up, putting speakers in place, not having us go in and have to do all the finishing touches. Next two are Link, the AND and the Telecore. This is the single wire fusion software is like a really nice front desk PA system that goes through the building. You can make emergency announcements or regular announcements. It's this or this. They got 2 quotes for 2 different versions, which, as you can see, are like $300 difference, $200 difference. And then the last one is the video surveillance. It was an alternate, but again, the framework wiring set up for this. And if we went with their video surveillance, we'd be using their subcontractor. Whereas I think we probably would want to go with the telecom. So this might be one that we reject so we can use our local company to do this work instead of using the contractor's thing. But we'll talk about that when and if we need to. The next decision you'll make is, should we go with an LTGO or a voted bond? Here's the considerations I would say is the advantage of going with an LTGO to fund it is you do a vote once. I would say as a general rule, a lot of people get confused by the difference between a levy and a bond. You're just asking for pool money. A lot of people don't differentiate what that is. The advantage of the LTGO is it's just one vote. Everything's included. It's one-stop shopping. Likely a higher interest rate, but there would be a shorter term. It wouldn't last as long on the public. You can turn an LTGO into a UTGO. UTGO is the voted bond. So you can go back in a couple of years and give it to the public and say, listen, we can get a lower interest rate. We're not asking for more money. We just want to flip this loan to something that, is a UTGO. And that is an option you can look at down the future. So we're not stuck with 16 years on the LTGO if you don't want it. I think the LTGO makes sense if you want to sign the contract now, because the impact on the levy isn't that significant. It's a lot cleaner. Bond considerations would require a separate levy vote. So again, you set 2 votes. People get to vote on the additional funds. I would suggest the 9 million. We already talked about that. If the public were to say no to a bond, the project would be in jeopardy. Might make more sense if we rebid because it's cleaner. If we have to rebid a nice simple number that the public can look at, it might be cleaner. So again, we can talk about this in your discussion time, but that is something you guys will be talking about. This one, you're not going to vote on this next one, but basically something to consider is, oops, not too fast. If you do an LTGO, if we add the money to the levy, we take out the 3.7 and the 4.7 million. There's a strategy as to when you want to do it. Again, this isn't something you have to decide tonight. I had a detailed meeting with Heritage Bank where we got terms of what the loan would look like today. And those numbers were favorable. That's why we felt comfortable that we could go forward with this project. Obviously, we don't know if we need 3.7 or 4.7 right now. So there is the consideration that we probably want to wait to at least after the November election, which is the option 2, figure out what we actually need, and then start looking at, having me start working with the banks and with Jim Nelson, those guys, to really lock in what's the most logical rate and the most logical terms, keeping our principal down. So again, this is probably a future meeting, but there is a decision to make and a strategy to when you would do the LTGO. If you do the bond, then the decision that would need to come tonight is when would you want to do the levy? Would you want to run your operation levy simultaneous? Again, gives you the operation funds early so that when the pool's open, you can open day one versus waiting till April 27 to get the funds. Would you want to do them separately so as not to overwhelm the public? Again, considerations to be made. And then the levy rate, the last thing for you to consider. This is just a draft. This isn't the final thing, but the levy rate breaks into three parts. It's one rate on the form, so the public's going to vote on one number, but I think that for the public's understanding. So 22 cents on 1,000 is what we currently operate on. So that's just our day-to-day operations, all the parks, all the programs. 4 cents on 1,000 is if you vote to do the LTGO. So if you do an LTGO, what we're saying is about 4 cents on 1,000 will get us the funds we need to make those annual payments on the loan. So then the middle number becomes the operation of the facility. So we have a detailed budget broken down with all the costs. And this is for a fully functioning 7-day-a-week facility, 12, 13, 14 hours a day, open 7 to 9 or so, running at full capacity. The number really is 20 cents on 1,000 by our current projections. Carrie and I looked at it a little closer, and I think for the short term, particularly, that we can get that to 19 and be all right. Simply because, we really are trying to be responsible to make sure we're not shortchanging that building, that we're giving it everything it needs to run properly. But at the same time, it's a lot of money and we're trying to be respectful to the public. So this model example would be 45 cents on 1,000. Which is a significant increase, but this is the vote of what the people wanted for a pool. It's about $270 a year on a $600,000 house, $22.50 a month. Those of you that like numbers, and the 19 cents is the number I think will probably get the most attention. But I think when you explain to people that we're getting a state-of-the-art facility with all the maintenance, insurance, all the things that go with it. And we're more than doubling our staff team because you got all the part-time staff with more full-time staff. Really being able to do that without doubling our levy took a little bit of work. And like I said, I think the budget we have is responsible. I think it gives us everything we need to run it 7 days a week, long days. We could cut that back to make it a 6-day building and make it less hours because a lot of your overhead, but I don't think that's what the public wants that building open, particularly early on. And really, we'll know better on our next levy because on the next levy, we will have a much better take for what our real revenue numbers are, what our real, expenses are. There's just, you open a building like this, and I've talked to a lot of people, and they all say the same thing. I said, you got to get through about 2 to 4 years before you really know what your real budget is. So I think our budget is well thought out and detailed, but anyways, it gets us to about 45 cents on 1,000, and you guys are going to have to decide whether that's higher than you want to go, lower than you want to go, and we'll have to get that on some kind of discussion point tonight. So I have talked a lot. I'm kind of done talking. But that is the overview of everything. Krista, do you have something to throw in?
Just a question.
Sure.
Going back to the individual amount. So you said that the 19 cents, that is, we would be more than doubling our current staff?
Less than, oh, yes.
Right. Could you just
Write that
remind me,
down.
like, what's the current full-time, part-time,
Right.
and then what the estimate is
Right.
for the aquatic center?
Yeah, yes, I can do this in my head probably. So right now we've got 4 park operations staff. This is adding one more person as a facility person just for the building. They would be under Tom. So you're adding one more staff there. You've got a HR manager because you're gonna have a lot of risk management and HR issues. And that person's going to need some help. So we have an administrative assistant under them. You've got 2 full-time aquatics people, which was highly recommended because if you only have one full-time aquatics person, then that person's gone. You have no one running your pool, basically. You've got a lot of lifeguards. You have front desk staff all the time. You have a front desk lead who is overseeing your front desk operations and scheduling all of that. And then you've got plans for a deputy director so that, because now your district has gotten to the point that you really need someone actually, Krista, I think it was you that said to me a year or two ago, that you need someone overseeing this bill. And it shouldn't be you, meaning me, because it's going to be that big of a deal. And so that kind of birthed the idea of doing a deputy director. So there was two of us, because I don't want to be removed from the building, right? I want to be involved with a lot of that. So that is kind of the staffing overview. And that, again, that's in the SharePoint too. If you guys ever want to look at the breakdowns of the staff or the budget, it's all in there for you guys to see kind of the way we got there. Nothing has happened to this point that has been, it hasn't been vetted and double checked and triple checked, and nothing's perfect, but we were really careful to try to keep things as fiscally responsible as we can. But it's an expensive venture. It just is.
And what is that 20 cents work out to in dollars?
The 19 cents.
You just said 20. So what's the 20 work out in dollars budget?
Yeah. You mean on impact on the voters, or on how much money it brings in?
Yeah, I mean,
How
that
much we
20
expect
cents
to
is to pay the bill, the annual maintenance and operations bill for the facility. So what is that annual maintenance and operations number
Yeah,
that
it's about
20 cents represents?
I want to say it's like 1.7, right around there. That's minus revenue. So you take your expenditures minus your revenue. It's around 1.7 million a year to run. Are you pulling that up?
I'm getting, yeah.
Yeah. So each year's a little different. Like 27 will be a little different because the pool will only be open for part of the year. And then, the hardest number to estimate in the budget was the revenue. Other facilities just weren't able to give us really good comparisons. We have the feasibility study, which we did use. Yeah. So,
So
Yeah,
that's
don't-
1.7 million net of
Yes.
Yes.
revenue.
Yep.
And how
That's what-
do you have any kind of baseline on how that compares with, like, say, a comparable size facility, Everwise, Gadgetwide, one of
looked
those,
at-
Vanderzicht?
Yeah, it is good. We compared staff plans, we got budgets from all of them to make sure, and pretty much all of their budgets were pretty similar. Our budget's very similar to what they had in that. But our staffing plan it's full, but it's not over top. It's consistent with what other people have. So the overall numbers, they were consistent with all the pools. Yeah, it's kind of started with our class and comp study that we did when we were looking at salaries. That's kind of the foundation for a lot of this, because we asked him to do a full aquatic study for us too. And that kind of, because a lot of this, the cost of this pool is salary, right? You're paid benefits, you're paid salaries for a lot of people. So yeah, this is right in line with what everyone does and what everyone's doing. Like I said, the option to cut here would be to cut hours and operations. Your opportunity to say, if we weren't open as much, we wouldn't need the lifeguards, the front desk staff might not have the same draw for that. But I don't think I think the number right now is set at a full building, 7 days a week, and is I think what we put in front of the public to say, this is the facility you want, and I think that we'll give a positive answer for that.
Right. But the other way to address it is by increasing revenue also, right?
Yeah, and we'll work on that, but that is an uncontrollable factor at this point. I mean, we've got plans, but that is the great unknown. What several facilities told me in my conversations, 3 of them to be specific, was the challenge of being on an island is that you don't have neighboring cities like other places do, right? You don't have Snohomish has Linwood, and you have other places that have other places to draw from, which is fine. We put around $600,000 of revenue a year in there, which I think was a little aggressive compared to what other people had suggested. But if we focus on sales and classes and other things,
How much did you say it was in for revenue? 600,000?
600,000, yeah.
Okay.
So,
I think that was from the feasibility study.
and that part of that was the feasibility study. But we broke down, how much do we think we're going to do in classes? Obviously, you'll get that honeymoon period where a lot of people will be excited, and you're going to get a lot of people coming in just to check out the new building, and you get people probably coming from mainland or Oak Harbor down to celebrate the new cool facility. But we're going to have a real strategic birthday party plan and make that to be something that's a destination. If we have the party rooms, I mean, Sky's going to have to program some classes in there, magic camp and things like that. So the revenue comes in a lot of different forms in this building. So that's going to be part of our charge. So 600 is what we're starting at. But again, that's part of the challenge of this is really until we get a couple, 2, 3, 4 years in, it's going to be hard to really know if that's too aggressive or too soft. And, are the
Right, so you're,
expenses.
so again, I'm trying to keep track of the numbers. So you're saying 2.3 million is really our operations and maintenance cost. We're going to offset that with 600,000 in revenue. So it ends up 1.7 and 1.7 turns into 20 cents per thousand. So really the cost to operate and maintain the pool is 2.3 million.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, 2.2, 2.3. We kind of, it would Carrie, we're looking at, we have different years that we projected. We projected 27, 28, 29. So through the levy, but yeah, up to about 2.3 million. So that is about right.
Can we go to the LTGO versus bond at some point? I had a question on that table that you had back there.
This one?
Yeah, this one. Yeah, I'm just trying to get this straight in my head. So you talk about LTGO. It was I don't think we've done before in our district history. It's certainly a tool we can use. And you say one public vote, but I thought you said the term of the repayment was 16 years.
That's what Heritage quoted us. So we got an actual quote on this. And the LTGO is the same money that funded the campground property. So we do have obviously a much smaller, model.
So, but we would go to the voters in November for the LTGO for 4 or 5 cents per thousand. In 4 years, we got to go back to them again. And then 4 years after that, I mean, we can extend it to 6, but at least 6 years, we got to go again. And then 6 years, we got to go again. So we're talking at least 2, if not 3 votes to get this repayment all the way to term, right?
There's a couple considerations there. I would probably suggest before we get to the end of this levy run that we put in front of the voters transferring that over to a UTGO so that they don't have to keep voting on it. And we'd probably get a better interest rate if we did that.
So it's at least 2. So you would do a LTGO in November, and then 4 years from now, do another vote for UTGO. So it's really at least 2 public votes.
Probably. And to be clear, they wouldn't be voting on an LTGO. We would be putting money into our levy, into our regular levy that they'd be voting on anyways, to make the payment for an LTGO. The public doesn't have to authorize an LTGO. The board has the authority to do that without public vote. But what the public vote would be is that we're going to give you the money to make the payments. So it wouldn't be an LTGO vote. It would be a levy vote that included money.
Sure. But our education campaign's got to be able to say why we're asking for 5 more cents. Right.
Oh yeah, there's the education campaign is going to have to be thorough this fall. Just make sure people understand, because we want to be very transparent. We don't want any water cooler talk on this. We just want people to understand this is the logic. This is the building, and it's going to be a great building, and it's going to be a pinnacle of our community for a lot of years.
And the UTGO is not the bond. But we have the option for during that same time period if rates came down.
Right.
It looked like it
Right.
do.
And it's just cleaner. So it's an option to put in front of the voters.
And that's at that 4-year increment as well.
You can do that at any point. This might be cleaner at the end of the 4-year. Because if you're taking money for an LTGO, you don't want to go to a bond while you're still taking money for a levy, right? I mean, so you want to make sure that you do it simultaneous so you're not double dipping. Does that make sense?
The advantage of the UTGO mainly is not having to revote.
Yes, and then it goes through the county. The UTGO, like our bond now, goes through the county. The county takes the property tax, pays it. We get statements, but we don't have to deal. It doesn't come through our end. So it's a lot simpler that way too. But most of the reason to do it would be if the interest rate was significant enough to save the taxpayers money. Yeah, in the long run.
I mean, they're all bonds, right? LTGO is a bond, a UTGO is a bond, a general obligation bond that we have the 27 million for. They're all bonds, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And I would think, just my thought is that the public understands from our history more the general obligation bond that we took to the voters for the 27 million for the pool better than we'll have less voter education to do in that case, because it's something we've done several times before with these major projects versus explaining a LTGO and a UTGO conversion and that sort of thing. Just a thought that.
Well, I think that's part of the discussion. So I, at this point, would start getting into the meat of the meeting, which is let you guys talk. And we have some decisions to make. And so the first one obviously being the biggest one, which was we have a received qualified bid from Lincoln Construction to build the aquatic center. We have a path forward that could afford to pay it. Do you guys want to move forward with that contract, authorizing me to sign it, or do you want to rebid the project down the road? And Jennifer, maybe I'll turn this back over to you for discussion and let you kind of walk through what they want to do with that. Good.
Is there any discussion that people want to have regarding?
Yeah, I mean, my personal feeling is, having thought about it a little bit, is that this is a significant change at the 4.7 million level, at the $9 million level. Neither one is insignificant. And now that we have a good feeling of the operation and maintenance costs at 1.7 million annually, I think we have a crystal clear picture of the costs. And that total is gonna effectively double our tax burden on the public. And as we saw on that last slide, so to me, I just can't get around the thought that we should take this back to the voters as a total package. That, hey, we now know what it's going to cost to maintain and operate, and we know it's going to cost an extra 9 million to get this done the way we want. And we hope that's a conservative number and it comes back, but let's plan for the most expensive scenario and explain it as we know with much higher precision what this thing is going to cost, and we're here to ask you to fund the rest of it. And in parallel, we look for other funding sources. I think this is a state capital budget item to go in October, November, and ask our representatives to offset this to the tune, they could pick up, just like they did in Tacoma, they picked up, 1.2 million, something like that, to ask for that. There's other funding sources, the grant cycle. So I think there's other ways we can help offset and educate the public that we're going to go out and look for those. But we now know what the costs are, and we're back to you to tell us you want us to go forward.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate your input. We could hear from some of the other commissioners.
Yeah, I think we really tried to get the prices down. I think we initially had to pool 40-some million at one point in time, bringing it down to 27, and obviously that should have been inflated a little bit more. But I think that we've already cut quite a bit out of it, while still having a really nice pool, 2 pools. I think that whether it was my own home build or other projects I've seen in government organizations, anytime something takes 6 months, a year, 2 years, I've never seen in my world things go down. I think we should get this, sign the contract or lowest bid, and we can talk about bonds, LTGO. I would rather keep going forward with this, keep addressing it.
Certainly pursue some of the other avenues that
Have been presented.
that's been presented. So,
Absolutely. I don't feel like we have a crystal clear view on the revenue, and especially in the first couple of years. Perhaps this is coming from my perspective as a small business owner, but I think that's really hard to predict in the beginning. And there is real cost to waiting, huge cost to waiting. Whereas we're trying to do this at the lowest possible cost for the taxpayers. And for us to do that, I think it makes sense for us to sign the contract at the lowest amount that we can and go forward.
I keep coming back, and Jennifer, I think you said it well. I don't think anybody in today's world is going to think that nothing is more expensive and that there is escalation. You know, whether it be tariffs or whatever, that 2 year span of time is important to talk about. And, you know, 4 cents, and I believe it's better to divide. I believe it's better to clarify that 19 cents is, you know, being used as operational, which is doubling the size and all the wonderful things that come with a brand new facility. You know, that's different. We're not maintaining an old pool. This is a brand new pool. And I think that, yeah. But that 4 cents, who is not going to, in their own world, experience that 4 cent increase on their own? And maybe it's just me. I've experienced it in my own building and my own buying of things now. And so I don't generally think the public's going to go, oh my God, how can you ask for that much? Because it's 2 years down the road. It is an incremental cost that I think is to be expected in a building project. I don't see it as excessive. Am I happy about it? No. On the same token, I think clarity and letting voters know exactly what they're getting for that 4 cents.
And we know full well that this is something that in the years that I've lived here, so I moved here in 1997. I think I voted on the pool twice. That seems to that ring true. I've heard people who have been here for a generation or 2 generations who have been pushing and hoping and trying to get a pool for over 30 years. This is the closest we have been. The finish line is there.
That statement repeats itself over and over again. Less than 2 hours ago, I had that very discussion with 2 people who said the word for word what you just said. You know, we've been waiting. We're so excited about this pool coming. And I told them, I said, we're having a meeting tonight about, you know, incremental cost. And the immediate response was get it built.
Yeah.
It wasn't, they didn't even question about the monetary amount, even though I said incremental cost, right? I think the average person is going to know that, you know, the original cost has gone up in this 2 year time period. So that's my thing.
Yeah, feedback I've gotten from different constituents has been, well, of course costs have gone up. That's only logical. Costs have gone up across the board for everything. So, yeah, and you've done is really wonderful. All right. So it seems that we are moving in a direction to approve this contract. So what we need to now decide is, and I always get these terms wrong, Mark, so please help me. If we additive deductives, what are we going to? Alternate deductives.
The alternates, it's similar additive, it's similar deductible.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So if we flip, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the slide we need to see. So we talked about revenue. City rooms are revenue, straight up revenue.
So I had thoughts on that as well. The party room is my big question mark. The multi-purpose room, as I like to call it, is there a possibility that we find a happy medium there? And Mark, maybe this is to your venue, that is it possible of expanding? When I say expanding, making it maybe the multi-purpose room a little bit bigger with a divider in it, so that it is a multi-purpose room, but we don't liquidate our ability to generate revenue from party.
Any changes would be in ad services.
Or
So any changes would be an ad service. In other words, we can't change the design without,
is that a drastic, I mean,
may not be drastic.
what I'm
But
talking
it
about
would
is
be.
using the existing footprint that we've been looking at over and over again. I know we're talking about eliminating the party rooms or the multi-purpose room there. My suggestion is solely that the multi-purpose room be truly a multi-purpose room, party rentals,
bigger.
aerobics, classes on, kayaking or whatever it may be. But creating a room that does it all.
If you accepted this deductive, meaning that we would not have the party rooms, then that is something that after we're under contract, we could go back to the contractor and say, if we wanted to expand it at the initial part, what would it cost us? And then we could bring that back. You'd have one room then, not three. That would be-
Yeah, that's my question.
Okay, yeah.
It just seems like there's a happy medium there.
But that
Well,
would
but
be,
this is key to the revenue profile, right? These
It-
party
it-
rooms.
Yeah, because I would call them we call them party rooms, but I see them as, classes during the week and evenings and rentals during the, might be businesses that come in and do rentals during the week or, and parties on the weekends, obviously. So I think they give you a lot of flexibility because the party rooms do have the divider eventually there. So the party rooms can become one bigger room for someone.
Yeah,
to
and
do
they
something.
were, and if we toured Anacortes, Oak Harbor, they are so desperate for party rooms. They use the hallway, they use the staff meeting room. They're completely booked at Eastside Community Center in Tacoma, at the one on Issaquah Plateau, the Community Center Y. Like, to me, this is a 1% cost that has massive payback, and in terms of usability of the facility, I think we take it out. We're just gonna get, people are gonna feel like we didn't come through with what we had promised.
Yeah,
There
I
is
would
a
agree.
shortage of rental space on South Wind. I did a lot of inquiries in my business for space. Still from heaven, so.
Yeah.
We
You might even get churches on Sunday morning renting it out or different thing. And there's a lot of opportunities to rent space like that is unique and different things. So
Yeah, one less thing to have to rely on negotiating or renting out with the school district. Income source, fantastic. To do in addition to the building down the road, that's gonna be huge. It's gonna be so much more than this current cost right now, or $250,000. So I definitely feel like it would be a big benefit for staff, community, revenue generator. I think it paid for itself.
I think that one we have more or less to, we'll vote at the end. Someone at some point is going to make a motion to authorize me to do the contract with these things. So let's just talk through. I feel like the first one, there seems to be consensus. The office space reduced, the consideration there would be, one is there is a meeting room, so a board meeting room, which we have potential. The cost savings there is if we don't have office space administratively there, we're going to need to expand our options here. So there would be an incurred cost. I don't know the number on that, but there would be incurred cost if we had to add another room for more staff offsite. So there's a consideration there. Staff would say on this one, it's under 200,000. And even though we're trying to pinch pennies and I get that, you can't get this one back. So it is something to consider. I think it isn't the direct revenue maker that the party rooms is.
But it's certainly saving money over the long run because we're not looking for rentals.
We're not adding another room to rent. And we are giving ourselves a lot more centralized care to the public. Because we have more staff physically in the building, which is a consideration, but staff are making an official recommendation. So.
That's the answer to my sample, but, or actually, I don't.
Yeah, the solar array, I'm not sure I get, because you're talking about the design phase of the grant. There's also a construction phase to the grant phase 2. That doesn't have a funding limit.
Correct. Although we have been warned by the Department of Commerce that funding is going to be extremely competitive and tight, just because of the current economy. But there is another option to go for more funding. We're talking about the solar array.
Right. But the advantage we have is we'll have an actual building to actually put an actual solar array on, not a plan, not a drawing, not a conceptual, like we'll have an actual building. And, you know, there were, when they initiated this, there's a new construction grant to, then they also have run periodic retrofit grants to put arrays on existing buildings. So I would think, one, seems it's been part of our discourse with the public since the beginning. And two, I think there's the chance that there will be other sources of money to help us offset the cost of the actual construction of the array.
We didn't talk about office space. We
Yeah.
skipped over that.
Just for my notes, I want to make sure we're talking one.
So the office space, we were renting from Island County Health, and we got the friendly boot. They needed the space. Now we're here renting from the school, which is great. I think we should have offices in our brand new multi-million-dollar facility. It doesn't make sense to keep renting from someone else. You know, what if the school district needs this space down the road? I personally think that the office space is really well needed.
Question. About that office space, is it just for the aquatics facility personnel, or is that for the entire district?
The aquatic offices are established behind the front desk, so they've got their own space. This is for an HR person, those for district staff beyond the aquatics.
Would it include everybody who's currently
No,
in this?
there's not enough space. It wasn't designed to have a full staff team. It was designed to have but a good portion of them. I mean, so it'll be, and also, you have a facility guy on site there that's going to be dealing with ordering supplies and stuff like that. So that person needs a desk, and so it's that kind of consideration. So it would help. We're going to have a divided staff either way. And we're going to have a couple locations. That's not the end of the world, but. So we don't have to go one by one on these. I know there's 3 that were kind of hot button items, and the 2 party rooms, office space, and then the AV system, just because it was such a small number relative to that, I know got some consideration.
And that's pre-built conduit. That's everything that goes into.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I see that as a valuable.
It'd be a hassle to do later and probably more expensive. So I throw out the other 5 for consideration if you want to. The solar panels, the Murtha versus concrete, the 2 single wire fusions for the video surveillance. Matt started the conversation on the solar panels. Does anyone else have a thought or a feeling on whether that should be included now or later on?
I immediately thought of, and it sounds like you already addressed it, but just supplemental funding in other ways for that. That's why I would say we would not have them. I'm in favor of it completely, but I think there might be ways we can go about doing that.
I go back to doing this as little cost as possible. Taking the lowest bid. Want to keep that number low. So my feeling is we keep the party, what we're calling the party rooms, because they are revenue producing.
Right.
We can do the AV system because that has to do with the infrastructure of the place, and it's such a small ticket item, but the rest of it is not central. Well, it's all really nice. They're not 2 pools.
Right.
And they're just gonna add to the price tag, which we do not want to do. That's my
And
personal.
I would say I feel the exact same.
No.
Which ones are you listing in that category, Krista? The not central?
Keep rooms,
I'm saying,
keep the AV system.
yes, keep those 2 items and let everything else go for now.
But wouldn't you consider the pool itself central?
Sorry, Matt, I didn't catch that question.
I was just saying that, like, as of all things central to the aquatic center, I would think the pool, like to me, that's the most important one on this entire list, is the quality of the pool experience. Since it's the whole point is a public pool, like all the rest is just, window dressing, air quotes.
So do you
you-
want to discuss the Martha versus concrete item?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes.
Real quick before we get there, I'm also not in favor of the extra solar here, since we already have a good portion of the building with it. I was with Eric, I think we could probably find grants to. I want to get that out before we start talking about Martha.
I will say that choosing Mertha at that price point would require rebid, because we work diligently on these numbers trying to squeeze as much, which is fine, but that's a decision to be made. If Mertha is that important, the delta, particularly with Lincoln, was just extreme. It was a lot higher than it was with the other ones. It was around $300,000 difference for all the other ones. Lincoln was exceptionally high. So in this issue.
Yeah. To me, this is a pushback at Lincoln. There's no way it should be 300K. That's where everyone else is. All these other guys have even more experience than Lincoln. Two of them do Trico, and
They can't go back.
They're not allowed to change it at this point. Legally, they're tied in with that number. I'm sure they would love to change
Yeah,
it.
I'm-
I'm sure they would love to make it.
yeah, I mean, then, yeah, but there's no, if you said we're gonna rebid it, there's no lag time on rebidding it to address. I mean, to me, it's like a typo, or like they have no idea what they're talking about. Like they're off by $800,000. So like, can it be rebid to this reopen the bid, for a week's time from now? Have
No,
people just resubmit their bids if they have no changes?
They cannot.
But this wasn't just Lincoln that we had. This was 8 other bids as well.
Right, but most of them, there was one that was like $600,000 difference, but the rest of them were right around 300. They all have the same subcontract, so they're getting the same numbers from the two subcontractors.
Same
One
Martha's.
that does Mertha, one that does concrete. 6 of the 8 had the exact same subcontractors. So so they were all getting the same numbers from their subs, but Mertha decided to put a larger number to do concrete versus Mertha. That was their decision. If you go with concrete, it's a huge advantage to us, right? So, but that was, at this point, it would take, same as you guys' conversation. What do you guys think?
My gut instinct is, as much as I like Martha, it's gonna sink the ship. That's tutorial when I say that. I mean, the ask is huge. So I don't know. Maybe the public was really concerned about Martha, maybe they're not. Once again, we're getting a brand new pool. The concrete or Martha, it's brand new.
You remember the conversation we had about the pickleball courts and the curb as a maintenance issue? Remember, one of the other key elements of the Mertha technology is that it comes with a 25-year warranty versus a concrete pool that will come with a 6-month warranty or a 12-month warranty. And
Miser is that.
during our tour of the Oak Harbor facility, in the tour of the Oak Harbor facility, they had an incident, out of control chemistry, and they had to regrout the entire pool at their cost, which was, I don't know how much, several $100,000. Entire 20 were subject to the risk of something like that causing a major maintenance issue at the pool. I think that yeah, I would equally weight with the quality of the pool experience. The whole reason we're doing this project.
1 year is if it was a concrete pool, it'd be a 1-year warranty. But again, we can't afford the 1.1. So unless you guys want to change your decision to go to rebid, that's not it's not a number that staff feel we can meet. Even adding back in the party rooms, we're crunching that carries over here to the whole computer crunching numbers. Just do this.
Yeah, I mean, if you do all these and you add it to your 4.7, it's 7 million.
Anyone else, maybe the question should be changed different. Matt feels that Bertha should be included as part of the project, either at that delta, right, Matt, or at rebidding. Is there any agreement? Maybe it might be a different question. Does anyone feel that they want to vet that out?
I really wish we could. But I think about how, when I'm doing construction projects at home, and I always try to buy the best quality that I can afford. And the best quality that I can afford is different than the best quality that somebody else can afford. And while there are possibly other districts out there that can afford a Martha, I don't think we can. And it makes me sad, but we're trying to get the best that we can for what we can afford.
Looking at the alternate list, what I'm hearing consensus wise is everyone seems on board with keeping the party rooms. Everyone seems on board with keeping the AV system. I don't want to speak for anyone, but I didn't hear a counter voice to either. I'm feeling that the other things could be looked at, but not maybe outside funding. Things like the solar array could be added later. We confirmed that. The office space, like I said, I think there is value there, but I appreciate that we have to tell the public that we're being as responsible as possible. I understand. So at that point, if there's not another thing you want to talk about on the list, that would be probably the motion that would be asked for, which if you look at the little cheat sheet for possible verbiage that I gave you. So if you look at the fourth one down, which is add back in the party rooms and add the AV installation, that would be the number of the motion.
I thought we talked about support for the office space one. Because didn't you just list 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 staff plus a new deputy director? And for 0.8% adder, we're going to cut 75% of the office space out.
Oh.
Was there opposition to that?
Staff would agree with you, but there was consenting voices that we shouldn't add things that don't bring in revenue at this. That was, I don't know if we brought it to a full consensus, but that was a discussion. So is there a counter to that?
The big one for me was just the fact that, and Jake, you opened the door to it, that will that be everybody moving there, or will it still be we're renting here? And the fact of the matter is that that's not going to solve anything in terms of our rental space here. So that's the decision maker for me as to adding that 75%.
But if we're mitigating that footprint, that we need for rental space a long term.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the office space.
Right.
Oh, you're
But
saying
that
renting?
that has a finite cost to it. Right? Rental space, we're decreasing the amount of space that we need to rent because we're able to put more people into this building. That would save us money in the long term.
My biggest thing, and I realize that we have enough staff and we won't all fit in there, but can, what Jennifer was saying, mitigate some of our footprint here. We got the friendly group from Allen County Health, and hopefully this lasts indefinitely, but what if the school district does something? So
I get
just
that.
thinking that
We don't
any
build them up.
extra bodies we can get in the new building is a benefit, but obviously it's cost. So I'm for it and I'm
I just
fully
back to
support
Chris's
it.
point that, you know, we're trying to keep this as low as possible.
Sure.
I would love that to be there, but if I know the needs of making that work, then people will lose. That's
I mean, I just think the benefit of this versus this cost is in the grand scheme of this project is a rounding error. It's 0.8%, 0.7%. For the benefit that it provides, seems like if you ask the average citizen out there for this cost to be renting space and putting people off-site in different facilities versus putting them all in the same place where our efficiency can be higher, the public would tell us we should fund it. But that's just me.
Well, just to give you guys context, because I think it helps you know what you're saying yes or no to on any of these. And I probably should have said this at the beginning. Based on Heritage's numbers, and these are rounded off numbers, I'm giving you a general thing. For every $1 million you add into the project for the LTGO, it's going to be about $100,000 a year in a fee. So if we add back in both the party rooms and the offices, for example, plus the electrical, you're pushing pretty close to $500,000, which is around $50,000 a year in your LTGO. Which, you know, is staff are in favor of the office space. I think there is value to it, but I also, like I said, you guys have financial decisions to make, so we're not making official recommendations, but that is the consideration you're looking at. So to add the offices back in, it's about, $20,000 more a year that would have to be paid towards a loan. To add the party rooms back in, it's about the same. So that's just kind of do some linear math with you. So just so you know what you're saying, yes or no.
Yeah, I mean, just to put it in those perspectives. So you're saying the LTGO as it is with none of these is 4 to 5 cents. Is that correct?
Carrie
Is
says
that,
fine. That is correct.
is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so you add all these in, we approve all of these, and it goes from 5 to 7.5 cents. So
the three.
we're talking 2.5 cents full list.
Do you know what it would cost
For the three.
So if you're saying it's 3 alternates, 4 or 5 cents, none of this.
It's
What is it if we have the party rooms, the office space, and the OV?
80, a general rule of thumb on the levy is 80,000 gets you a penny. Every penny you're getting 80,000. So if you added $40,000 to $50,000 by adding these in, you're looking at about a half a penny, about a half a cent. So maybe it rounds it from 4 cents to 5 cents on the levy.
To get those 3.
You get those two.
you get the, that's all.
The other thing we looked at,
You're saying half cents for 4.7 million. Right? LTGO.
Well, what I was saying was that for every penny you increase your levy, you're getting about $80,000 in revenue, roughly. You're using some rounded off numbers here.
Estimates on assessed valuation.
Yeah. So either, at this point, it's, I think the office seemed to be the divided issue, and that might be something that we want to call on a vote for, just to see if we have clarity as to where people fall.
This was.
Well, and I will say to Matt's point, just to give you an example, we pay around $1,700 a month now to rent this space from the school district. If we had to add staff offices, this gives you, I'm just giving you a number. I'm not telling you how to vote. I'm just simply saying that is kind of the consideration. If we double our staff size, but can't put them at the pool, you're probably looking at least $800 more, maybe more to get another room here. if we can't find another location. So, that's $10,000 a year, and we kind of just start adding that up. Again, there's a lot of numbers we're throwing at you, so I'm not trying to sway the jury here.
I'm envisioning what school has done, what the Christian school has done, right? They grow and they put in satellite buildings for a little bit till they figure out what they can do, and then make those satellite buildings a bit more permanent. Would it be easier down the road to find a spot for a smaller permanent structure
Hmm.
than it would a larger permanent structure if we don't invest in that?
Interesting. We lost Matt.
Roughly how many would would the office, how many staff members could fit in them
With the current design or the expanded design?
with this alternate if we had it?
Well, the way it was built is I think there was 4 plus a conference room, but we could turn the conference room into 2 or 3 more office spaces. So we could probably add, so right now there's probably 1 or 2 that can get in there. Or probably 2 that can get in there if we just take the 25%, we probably can get 2. If we have the whole space and we don't make that a conference room, we could probably get 7 or 8. And if we made it a conference room, then we'd get 4 or 5. So, your interesting point. I mean, this is not to me, it's office space. There's a value, but it's not party rooms. To me, the party rooms are a much bigger deal because we're calling ourselves a recreation center. So we need to be a recreation center, and that gives us the space. So,
Just a quick question. So if we cannot house those additional staff, the new staff
Mhm.
in that building, where will they be? They're gonna be the gerbil on my treadmill.
well, this is probably in the short term us renting more space, right? Either going to the community center or going here and asking, or other places. Like Jennifer said, maybe we'd start looking long-term plans of, what we can,
And so what does that do for the culture, for the people who are in the rec center? And by culture, I mean day-to-day interactions,
Yeah.
communications, and
we're not gonna be able to get them all there anyways. That is a consideration. If we could get them all there with this expansion, then the argument would be much cleaner. It'd be like, yes, of course, we want all of our staff there. But I also think it's really important that we emphasize that we are a Parks and Recreation District with an aquatic center, not an aquatic center that is a Parks and Recreation District. Because I think a lot of your Parks and Recreation districts are aquatic centers. That's pretty much what they are. So having 2 locations isn't the worst thing in the world, especially in this case where we're across the street. Showing the public that we have administrative offices, but we also have a wonderful aquatic center. That message, I think, is nice, just to show that we're bigger than just a pool. So, yeah, I mean, this is the tricky one. So, I mean, like I said, you guys' call, but we estimated these rooms at $500,000 to $600,000, so we were pretty happy to see that. Of course, the decision will be easier if it was that.
are you feeling that we want to make this a 2-step approach? Do they want to take a vote for offices, no office?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I totally have information that I didn't share with you earlier, but just because I didn't think it was relevant. If we pass the levy in November, when we pass the levy in November and the public goes crazy and excited, there's a small window there that we could go back to the contractor and say, you haven't laid the foundation yet. Can we add this back in if we've gotten the increased funds in the levy? The challenge with that, because I did talk to the contractor about this, is it's not going to come at the same price. And he couldn't quantify that. He goes, because from the day we signed the contract, we are now working with our subs. They are working on the designs. They're doing all their work. If you come and say we want 2 more rooms and extra office space, then that's going to come at a higher cost because they've now worked and we've got to back it out. But the offices could be that consideration, that if we pass the levy in November, we'd have more idea of the numbers at that point to say, okay, we got pretty good numbers here. We got a good rate. Let's go back to the contractor and find the real number to make the full office space at that. So there is that option too of saying yes to the party rooms and saying, let's wait till we get the levy passed in November to, again, the downside of that is it's probably going to be, maybe it's 300,000, not 200,000. So there's a financial risk, but then at least, you've got the money and you're not playing with, hypotheticals. So another thing for consideration.
I'm thinking about that layout as well, this is down the road. Phase 2 part of it, people truly thinking ahead and, talking about the gymnasium aspect and the attachment and enough space there for that to happen. If I remember the design correctly, the administrative rooms you're talking about is the bubble that comes out beyond the actual roof line, the traditional roof line of everything else.
Yeah.
So that's part of my thinking when I say not completing that, reducing the price and reducing the build by 75%. Because I'm thinking about the design of that in phase 2, as we get more into the pool and we decide, much to Jennifer's point, not so much affordable, but okay, we need to build this additional facility because, hey, we're thriving. We have administrators of the pool that need a place to work. That's just part of what I'm thinking about. I think for what it's worth, is that bigger picture as well. Okay, can this happen?
Can I go out of the box for a second and say, would Island County entertain the idea of allowing us to buy or make a permanent lease of the building we were in before? It's a building that has 1 or 2 cars in the parking lot on a regular basis every day. I'm just saying, another consideration that could be made is that would be the perfect location to have this, right at the end of our parking lot. Again, haven't started that conversation with anyone, but I'm just throwing out, there's a lot of paths forward on this one. That's why tonight, all you have to decide is do you want it in the bid now? That's all you have to decide. We'll figure out the rest. I'm getting a couple no's, but do we have 3 no's and we can move on from this one? I'm not sure.
I think
Jake,
it's
Jennifer,
incredibly creative team. And
she better write us.
correct solution will become apparent when it needs to.
I do
That
appreciate being reminded that it passes. We can that understanding, right? I mean, it's a shift, right? But at this point,
We know it's good.
yeah. So say you're a yes to suck up to us. Just
I think I already made that, not the sucking up, but yeah, I was leaning towards approving the office space now. I believe Matt was, it sounds like you're not for it this time, so.
So we have consensus on 2. We have consensus on party rooms, and we have consensus on the AV thing. So
And I cannot let this go without making another plea for this pool. We're building a pool. So of all the things that we've talked about, we've talked the least about the actual pool part. And this has 3 components to it. To me, it's 1, the quality of the user experience is universally lauded as higher with this steel pool technology. It's got a maintenance and operations benefit, 25 years of warranty versus a maintenance risk.
Matt,
And
Matt,
it's got a
that's been
revenue.
Matt, it's
Say
been
again?
covered. It's been covered. So we have an
The
opportunity to
third,
speak
the third,
once.
please let me finish, Jennifer. The third portion that we haven't talked about is the revenue generating component. The thing that makes me really uncomfortable about the financials that you've laid out, Brian, is this 1.7 million net operation and maintenance costs. That cost recovery is the lowest of any facility we surveyed in touring all the facilities we visited in the Northwest. Remember, Snohomish Pool recovers at 97%. That means they fund 3% of that total $2.3 million cost, which would be $60,000. And we're talking about 1.7 million in our facility.
Matt,
The
that was
revenue
already
generating
covered.
component,
Matt, that
no,
was
the
already
revenue
covered
generating.
in that Snohomish has the option of having people come from other communities. We do not
No,
have that
true.
luxury.
No, but we do have that option. This facility is going to host when we went and presented to Pacific Northwest Swimming, they gave a grant to the foundation of $20,000 towards the pool project because they wanted to put this facility on the annual schedule for swim meets for Pacific Northwest Swimming, which feeds USA Swimming and the Olympic Development Program. They said we could get up to 6 swim meets. That's how Snohomish gets to their 97% revenue. They charge between $5,000 and $12,000 to host a swim meet, depending on what the organizers want to have the facility do. Organizing food, organizing timing, organizing party rooms, organizing other things. So there's a revenue generating component over the life of this facility, which we hope is going to be 50 years, a 25-year warranty component and maintenance operations. And oh, by the way, it's the highest quality pool in the world. And it's a 1.2 cent decision for us on that LTGO. I just think it's unconscionable that we would shortchange the public on the actual pool in the pool project. And I'll stop now, but I just can't support something that shortchanges the actual pool.
Thank you. I would say unless anyone else has a thought, at this point, it seems like we've got, I made some list of with my gibberish. Which is just some of the verbiage. So it seems, unless I'm misinterpreting, that we still have consensus to enter into contract and to accept the additive for the AV and to reject the deductive for the party rooms. We don't really have to address the rest. We just can specifically address those two. And then the number circled on the bottom would be the amount of the motion for the document. So that includes the getting the party rooms and the AV, but not the other things.
Is it the same?
It's the same thing.
I'm sorry, you're gonna read my chicken scratch.
All right, so each commissioner has had ample opportunity to speak. And we've had a very robust discussion. So at this point, we need to meet someone.
Yeah, we're good.
So at this point, I would entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the executive director to enter into a contract with Lincoln Companies LLC for the construction of the South Woodby Aquatic Recreation Center in the amount of $25,510,500. That correctly? That's down $5.
I know.
And that would include the party rooms and food the installation alternates.
Yep, that's good.
I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize the executive director to enter into a contract with Lincoln Companies LLC for the construction of the South Woodby Aquatic Recreation Center, adding back in the party rooms and the AV installation in the amount of $25,510,005. All those in favor say aye.
Eric,
Krista, aye.
Big,
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay.
Matinee.
The ayes have it, and the motion passes.
And congratulations to the many people in the audience that came to see the hard work that you did come to fruition. Congratulations on it.
Thank you, Foundation.
yeah, thanks a lot. And know that it's just a gut, it's not a gut answer. A lot of thought. And so it's really hard for me not to be pro-Mirtha. It's not that I'm not pro-Mirtha, just understand that. I want those administrative rooms, but I also am just envisioning this bigger picture of voter turnout and what the public's gonna see. I want us to get a pool. I do not want to go through this in my lifetime one more time. I too.
Everybody said amen.
My kids were raised and gone, and we still don't have a pool. I want this pool.
Yeah.
But I want it for all the right reasons.
Yeah. Being raised in Minnesota, schools, all of them have schools, all of them through. I can't imagine a community without a pool.
Well, congratulations. Couple more decisions. We're not done yet. Sorry. Should have saved this for last maybe because then we could have slept. Staff recommends at this point making this, putting this into the LTGO, into the levy to pay for an LTGO. Is there a counter to that, or otherwise we can just move on from that point? Feels like.
Right into that.
Okay. When we do it, we can talk about it at a different meeting. It feels like we got a lot of stuff. So let's jump to the last big thing, which is the levy. We did add a little bit more back in. Remember, this was between 4 and 5 cents. So do we want a couple things to consider? We're at 45. This could have easily been 20, which would have been probably the more accurate number if I was really giving you the full number. This could have been 5. So do we want, the decision now is we've got to put this to Island County to get on the ballot at a certain number. What number are you comfortable with is ultimately the question. Honestly, if we had everything here, it might be 47 cents, but that seems a little high. So, and I think we can make some, I think we could trim some things down to keep things kind of in check. Carrie's got her pen out. So that helps. So the only number that's kind of solid is the 22. We know 22. But do you feel comfortable at 45? Do you think we need a little more cushion because we just added back in the party rooms? But I think, again, the party rooms are going to bring in revenue too. So there's an offset there. So I don't know. Your decision at this.
If you're setting the rate and extending it for
Again,
it's 16 years on this.
that's what Heritage quoted us for our initial conversation. It could change, but that's what we got in our initial conversation.
Which could vary based on possibilities.
Yes, correct.
Right.
And this can be paid off early,
Yeah.
just like our campground. If we were doing well financially, this could be paid off early. The LTGO could, let's say things are coming in under and we're doing great and revenue's flying in, we could put more money towards this debt
But this is a 6-year.
4-year. Because we want to,
Levy?
we talked about a 6-year, but really it was like we talked about earlier. Until we get a few years into this pool, we really don't know enough we want to be cautious so that next time we go to the voters, we really know what we're asking. I think this is a responsible number, but it certainly could change a little bit. Where's your comfort? 45, 46, 52? No. I will say, I think the right number is between 45 and 47. I wouldn't go lower than 45 just because right now it's between 4 and 5 cents on 1,000 and 19 really should be 20. I probably wouldn't recommend going below 45. But again, that 19 has some flexibility in it because this is everything we possibly could want in this pool. So we could, like I said, you shave a couple hours on Sunday and an hour at the end of the day, and next thing you know, you save a few pennies. So,
One thing that didn't come up in earlier discussion is, and I know that you put it into the comp study.
right.
And so I'm gonna go out on a limb and trust that it was built in there, that giving voice to it is that between now and when we open this, and then every year beyond, pay scales go up.
That is factored into this, but yes.
So what seems like a cushion now, very likely 2 years into this levy, 3 years into this levy is no longer a cushion.
And I will say, we build the rates based on 2029, right? Because we factor in that we get the 26 numbers and you're going to do 1% a year, but staff rates are going to go higher. So we did factor that in. Now you also have staff leave and the next person starts at step A, right? So you have some of that fluctuating too. You have a position that's vacant for 3 or 4 months in a year. Some of these positions will be challenging, but yes, we did factor in escalating COLAs and pay raises and things like that.
And health insurance.
And health insurance and all the things that go with it into these numbers. So that was considered when we built these numbers in.
We just tacked on about just under 300,000.
Yeah. I think
What's the 4-year budget projection versus the 22? I mean, say it's working today, but 4 years from now, at the end of the term, where does it stand on our 4-year budget? 4-year budget projection. It can't. 22 can't.
For the 22
That's
cents.
there, can it?
For the 22 cents for our regular operations. Is that what you're asking? How would it look for
Yeah,
4
the
years?
4-year projection of our cost increases across the full budget.
I will say
Sure.
Carrie's been working diligently on this 22-cent number. Make sure it was right. So I'm sure she's got a comment here.
So I would say that the last year, 29, and I'm estimating. Okay, I would say that the year 29 is gonna be trickier. We're gonna have to cut some things out. I'm deleting something really quick while I'm calculating.
Right, so it should,
the
our
first- the
baseline
first-
should be something higher than 22.
We're gonna be so flush in 26 if we reset our levy. And 26 and 27. And then 28 and 29 will be less so. And we're still figuring out capital expenses, so the equipment replacement schedule. So we haven't finished going out that far. I will say that 22 cents in 29 will be tight, but we're gonna be doing so well at the beginning, 26, the beginning of the levy, that it would be good.
And our revenue, if our revenue really is projected low, that'll be a huge offset to that too. So,
But I would,
Well, shouldn't we have that nailed down before we set the levy rate?
well, I think,
Like, can we
Right.
finish the math?
I think we have finished the math. I think that projecting out 3 or 4 years, Carrie has a thought here.
I mean, we're estimating. We don't know, what the employment cost index is gonna be.
Right.
So we estimate as far as we can, but it's still, there's so much unknowns that we're doing our best estimates. But I will say
Right,
that
but-
if 22 cents is our regular levy, that I think will be tight towards the end of a 4-year levy. But we'll be able to carry over from the earlier years. So then 20 cents, if that covers most of the pool operations. And then my best guess is around 4.5 cents if we add the multi-purpose room back in for the LTGO. So that would total us at 46.5 cents.
But you were saying that we'd be cutting things in years 3 and 4 of that budget. So is it 23 or is it 24? To get us to full normal operations through 4 years?
I think 22 is still the right number. And I'll say, you have to also keep into consideration that when 22 was set the first time, it was based on property assessed value at that time. We'll be getting the higher level because it's gone up in the last few years. So we'll be naturally getting more money based on the increased, value that we have going in. So I still think 22 is the right number.
Yeah, so if you averaged out the 4 years, we would be flush. But because of the timing of different capital purchases, revenue expenses will exceed revenue at either the year 28 or 29, depending on our choices.
There's so many factors that change between now and then. But I'll also say that Teresa, our CPA, has given us a plan to put money into a fund at the end of the year. So at the end of 26 and 27, where we have extra levy money, we can put some of that money away to store for 28 and 29. So, So the numbers, when you're projecting this far out, when you have a major facility opening between now and then, there's certainly projections, but I think they're reasonable projections. I don't think they're too conservative. I don't think we should raise it beyond 22 cents. I think 22 cents is right. I think the two numbers that probably need to be looked at, like Carrie said, is the 19 cents here, should it be 20, and the 4 cents there, should it be 5? That should be probably the consideration for you guys to.
But the 22, that budget you were talking about, we know way better than we know either the 19 or the 4. So we should be really sharp on the 22 or 23. And we should be less sharp on the 19 and the 4 because we don't know as much about those things. Would you agree with that?
I would. And that's why I said Carrie has spent a lot of time in the last week working on just that, working to make sure 22 makes sense.
Right, but she just said in the last 2 years of the budget, we're gonna have expenses exceed revenue. So it's
based
got to
on
be higher than
projections.
22.
So part of it is a timing issue. So 26 is expected to have, if you want, it might not be the best term, but a surplus of $671,000. And then the next year, 120,000. And then we expect to exceed revenue by 160,000 and then 26,000. So it's just not a flat line. That makes sense, but it averages for the 4 years that we'll be doing fine.
And if revenue is higher as projected, then we'll be doing better.
But the things that we don't know, we just don't know yet. Like the employment cost index, what's COLA gonna be
Right, but we
estimated high, but
budget, right, but we do budget projections all the time, right? So we estimate those things.
yes. So that's okay.
And that's where we're, so staff are comfortable with the 22. I like you guys' input on whether you think we should increase the 19.
I'm talking between 45 and 47, and I think Carrie said something about 46.5-ish seemed to be the real thing. I'd be willing to split the 45, 47 and go up 46, just with the two additions we did. How much does 1 cent bring in?
About 80,000 more based on the current projections there.
Well, but you just said, Brian, that 46 wouldn't get us there. We need 25 and 22. So 47 is our minimum.
No, I think 46 would get us there. I think, you're looking at, as you said, the last two items on this list. Oh, the other thing to consider is the 4 cent LTGO. While we can get that revenue, we don't need that LTGO for a year. I mean, right, we've got 27 million to pay down. This LTGO would fund the end of the project, right? Logically. So even more so, Carrie's point of in the years of prosperity, where we've got extra funds at the end of the year, we've got a plan in place with the CPA to put those monies somewhere so that we would have them if there was any shortfall. But again, when you're opening a new building, there's so many things you don't know. We're being very fiscally conservative at this point, but I think 47 is high, in my opinion. I think we could do it for less than that. I think we'd be all right. I mean, I'm not going to put the staff or the programs in jeopardy. So,
But wait, Brian, you just said 19 needs to be, I quote you, 19 needs to be 20, 4 needs to be 5, and 22 is great, which is 47.
Right.
And now you said 46 is okay.
Right.
Where did the 47, how do we move off 47?
because we're dealing with projections and we're dealing with estimated cost. So I'm saying we have some flexibility to keep this as low for the public as possible. I think 46, we could run a full center at 46 cents and I would feel there. Okay. What's the rest of you guys at stake? If you want to give us 48 or 49, right? I'm just saying. But I don't think that would be. I mean, part of this is we have to explain to the public how we got to these numbers, and I think showing that we are trying to be as fiscally sound as possible. Like I said, a penny or 2 pennies may not make a huge deal in most people's lives, but it does send a message that we're not taking that these are tax dollars paying for it as a serious thing. Right? These are all of our tax dollars as residents here. So I don't know. Jake mentioned 46. Where are we at?
I like 5.
Okay.
30. Once again, immediate look at it. Look at a few months.
Hmm?
2250 a month, right?
Yes.
Chris. It is. It is. But some people operate that way. When you start budgeting numbers, I question why. And a lot of people do. So
The flexibility in the 19 cents is it's an operation budget for a building we haven't opened. So we can make it wherever it needs to be to get to the number we need it to be based on operational things, right? So there's decisions we can make to shrink that number, which could impact some things, could impact services, but those are things staff can work on. So that's why If it's between 45 and 47 as a staff person, I'm fine. So we'll make it good. So,
I'm more comfortable on the higher end of that. I'm less familiar with the 20 cents. If we're rounding that and we round the LGGO, that starts becoming significant. So
Mhm.
we have to pay this back.
well, the impact of going to the lower number will come out of the aquatics. I'm not saying we won't run the pools or we won't run, I'm not saying we're gonna cancel Sundays. I'm just simply saying that the less money we have, the 22 cents is kind of an established number for us. The LGGO is gonna be a set fee that we have to pay. Those numbers are somewhat unmovable in that. So a lower number would logically come out of the operations of the aquatic center, which is fine at this point. We haven't opened. And that would be the consideration.
But it's for the first 2 years,
Correct. Good point.
correct? We're not talking
Forever.
forever. We're talking about for the
It's a great point.
first 2 years as we are figuring out what kind of programming, aquatic programming, the community wants, at what scale, at what time, on which day of the week. We're not saying,
Impossible excited, right?
right, we're gonna open up and we're gonna be 24/7 right away.
yourself
Like,
in.
I think that saying like maybe for the first 2 years, we're gonna be trying different things and having I think that's realistic and prudent.
Yeah.
Which is why I lean towards the 19 and say, make it work.
We love a challenge. Challenge.
Well, but that, I mean, the 19, go back to the cost recovery, that shows we're recovering at 23%. There is no facility in the region that recovers less than 50%. Oak Harbor's the low, and they're 55. So we're showing half the cost recovery of every other pool in the region or worse at 19 cents. So there's lots of room in the 19 in my just quick math.
That's five.
I'm hearing a couple 45s. Heard a 46. Jennifer, do you have a?
I'm 47, by the way.
Seven, thank you. There we go.
We didn't end up needing that much. We would, I imagine, do what we've done in the past. We would pay off principal payments on loans. We would invest it in the project, I assume. Well, we want a number that, of course, will pass. But we also want.
So what is your 46 on? So what does that figure out to be if you change the 45 to the 46?
You mean on this one here?
The impact, $600,000. 270 a year becomes what?
I'm doing math in my head now. 46, 1,000. I'm guessing it would be another months, 20 months. I guess I don't know. My math brain isn't going to work on this now.
So we're saying it would be, in terms of explaining this to the voters,
Mhm.
it's 22 cents to keep everything going that we already
Right.
do.
Current operations.
We'd be going to 20 cents for the aquatic center and 4 cents to pay for the construction.
You went to
Got
46.
that correct?
Right now, we kind of have 45,
That's a little-
45, 46, and 47. So kind of,
Yeah, the 4 cents is the big mover, though. I don't think we want to say 4. I think your math says 4.5 at a minimum, right?
and a half is
For
what I,
to actually
estimated.
pay the LTGO.
yes.
Yeah, that's where you start messing with big numbers. Like that, to pay the LTGO, you need 4.5.
I would say probably the simple answer here at this point, Jennifer, not to put any pressure on you. But if you felt a higher number, 46 or 47 was appropriate. Well, if you thought 46 was appropriate, that probably would be the number, because I imagine Matt, if he had to choose between 45 and 46, would go 46. If you felt 45, then that's comfortable. As a staff, I'm really comfortable either way, because like I said, any deficit here will come out of the aquatic center, but we can make that one. But I'm also comfortable with getting all the money that we need to pay it all upfront. That's also a good thing. We have a lot of public meetings, and we want to make sure this is well vetted. And
Can you run them out?
I'm doing it on it. It's another $6 a year. But there's the consideration that will be 2 years after we open it, we will be going back out to vote. So it's not a long-term decision we're making here. It's how do we open the pool and get those fish up here control.
76 on 46.
Yeah, I think if my math is right. So it's 46,000 or 46 cents times 600,000. I'm not using the right numbers, there's 6. So staff will make whatever you guys decide. Like I said, we're gonna make this work. It's gonna be great. But we need to have 3 of you agree.
Yeah, but I mean, I heard we're gonna be underwater in year 2 and 3 on 22. I heard 19 should be 20, and I heard 4 should be 5. So to me, if we're gonna be actually operating smoothly, it needs to be 23, 20, and 5. So now we're at 48. So I still think 47 is a good number. And 46 or 45 means that we're gonna be cutting corners.
Or revenue will be higher than we expect. And that'll offset this.
Yeah, but I mean, as Krista said, that's the hardest thing to estimate. So let's say we're not, say we don't.
The other option here is for someone just to make a motion, and if you don't get 3, someone else can make another motion.
I'll make a motion to set the proposed levy 4 years, starting November of 2026 at a rate of 47 cents per thousand.
Well, that's a year too late, Matt.
In 2026.
2020, I said 2026, right?
I know you said starting in 2027, so.
No, I said 2026.
The ballot is for 2025 that we're trying to hit.
Yeah, sorry, November 2025. Amend my resolution or my motion.
There is no second. Entertain a new motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-04, the 4-year maintenance and operation levy to be placed on the ballot November 2025 at a rate of 46 cents for $1,000 assessed property value.
I'll second that motion. It's been first and it has been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2025-04. Four-year maintenance and operation levy to be placed on the November 2025 ballot at a rate of 46 cents for $1,000 of assessed property value. All those in favor say aye.
Okay.
Krista, aye.
Jake, I,
And I,
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the motion passes.
That was a very thick
That was a tough
meeting.
one.
You guys, yeah, you got through a lot of material there. That was really impressive.
they
Well,
were,
you still have-
forward was cool.
Yeah, congratulations.
Pretty neat.
And kudos for the information. Honestly, this was not taken lightly.
Yeah.
Not brushed over. That helps.
Are we skipping the last agenda item, assuming that it's,
You won. Because the decision was made.
Yeah, there's not need for agenda item number 6, so that.
So,
Is there paperwork that's?
yes, there'll be signatures that are needed over here. But are we ready to adjourn?
I believe we are ready to adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Hard work.
Thank you.